Hello and welcome to Crafting Changes quick class. Today we're doing a fleece ear warmer headband with ear flaps by HelloSewing.com. I'll be showing you how to make this super easy headband with no exposed back seam that can potentially irritate the wearer. Now for the pattern for this one, please go to HelloSewing.com fleece ear warmer headband and download the ear warmer pattern. Once you've gone to HelloSewing.com and downloaded the pattern pieces, simply print the pattern out at 100%, cut the pieces out, and line up the markings and tape A to B. Now place this pattern piece on the fold and cut two, one for the outside and one for the inside of the band. Make sure you have the greatest stretch going around the head or crosswise of the pattern piece. Now, next thing we'll need to do is find which is the right and which is the wrong side of the material. If you take one of the cut edges and gently tug on it, it'll curl to the wrong side. So I like to take something like this marking pen. This is a chalk pen, and mark the wrong side of the material so I don't get confused. Now open up each piece and place the right sides together, stacking one on top of the other. And when you have the raw edges lined up, pin or clip the curved edge together and sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back tacking at the beginning and at the end. Now for the other side, still with right sides together, take a sewing gauge or tape measure and measure in 2 inches from the end and pin together. Do this on both ends of your headband. And what you're going to be doing is sewing this side of the headband shut, but only between the two pins. So start at one end, back tack, do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and sew up at stopping at the other pin and back tacking here. When you're done with that, come back and grade both of these seam allowances. Now turn your headband right sides out. And now we're going to join the center back. We've got our right sides out, so this, where you left it open for 2 inches, take one side of each one of those and come and bring it together. Match up the raw edges of this center back and go ahead and pin or clip so we can sew the center back seam. It might be a little bit tight when you're trying to work in there, but you will be able to get it done. Meeting all of the raw edges and pinning it together. So now we're going to sew this seam, the center back seam, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now you can see why we left 2 inches open at both ends of the headband. That was to give us enough room to sew shut the center back seam. Once you have that sewn, grade the seam allowance and then gently tug on the headband so the right sides are once again on the outside. Then finger press the center back seam open. Turn under the 1/4 inch seam allowance at the top and pin or clip it closed. You can hand stitch this closed with an overcast stitch or ladder stitch, or simply sew it closed while you're top stitching the rest of the band. Now in preparation for top stitching, the next thing we're going to do is take our fingers and roll these seams between your fingers. Just roll them back and forth to get these seams right out to the edge. And once you have those right out to the edge, go ahead and clip them in preparation for top stitch. So you're going to want to do that all the way around the top and the bottom of your band. Now for top stitching, I prefer to use either a narrow zigzag or a narrow 3-step zigzag, because I find that it doesn't stretch out the headband as much as some of the other stretch stitches. And when you're sewing this, a couple things to remember: there is going to be some pulling on it as the wearer puts it on and off, so you don't want anything real tight, like a real tight straight stitch that'll pop the stitches. But yet when you're sewing, you have to find that happy medium to not having something so intense that when you sew it, it distorts this fleece. And another word of caution: when you're guiding this through your machine, make sure you're not pulling on it as you're sewing, or you can make a real distorted, wavy edge. So there you have it, our version of HelloSewing.com Fleece Ear Warmer Headband. Couple of post notes here. I tested on my fleece a couple different stitches, regulating the length, the width, and the tension, and it always pays off to do this if you're not sure of how your machine's going to react to the fabric. So I used a 3-step zigzag. I lowered my tension to 3.8, and I did the length of the zigzag at a 10.0 and a width at a 4.0. So test on your machine with your materials, see what works best for you, and then write it down so you can remember it next time. So thank you for watching, and thank you so much for sewing with us. We really do appreciate it. Now, if you'd like to stay tuned, second half of this video, we're going to amp this up a couple notches and do one that has a contrasting band, which I am in love with. So thank you, and see you later.